Okay, welcome back. We're actually skipping ahead quite a few chapters, going to chapter 29 to talk about enumerations. So let's describe the problem that we're trying to solve to begin with. When I go to my employee guy and I talk about the department, okay, I can't just type Mary Had a Little Lamb in there. I really need a list of departments, right? So you could go in here and just kind of sort of the way we did it here. We could come up and say, well, let's see, there's a public static, final string, I don't know, department one, or no, let's just do sales equals. I guess we're going to have to come up with a halfway decent name for this thing. I don't know. Department sales equals sales, something like that. And then you'd have another one for engineering and another one for, all the rest of the things. And so then when it came time to do input validation, you would have to go through and say, well, is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? And that's really painful. Mainly because if I added a section here, remember we're talking about side effects. If I add a section here, I don't want there to be any side effects anywhere else. Well, if I add a brand new section, right? Well, clearly I would have side effects. I mean, doggone it. If the department for engineering got added, because we have a brand new engineering department, then clearly, that's going to be causing some problems with some of these other, won't cause a problem here, but it's going to cause side effects on somebody else. For example, when I get to here and I want to check to see if you're passing a decent, department, I would have to say, is it equal to this? Is it equal to this? Well, if you change the thing that it's equal to, so I need another solution, okay? And the solution is using a thing called an enumeration. Okay, so instead of doing it this way, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and actually build us an enumeration. So I'm going to go in here and say, I'm going to say public enum, hey, and then we're going to call this thing depth type. And then I'm going to put in some department types. I'm just going to type in, sales, engineering, okay, sales, admin, whatever, I guess engineering. Okay, and that's basically all I have to do. I've created an enumeration. So now my department is not a string, my department is an enumeration. So I'm going to change this to something like, let's make the default sales for no, hang on a second, let me just do it before I get anything crazy here. So I'm going to change this to department type, and then the default, I should pick one. So I'm going to pick sales just for no particular reason, just so I have a thing. All right, now we get down to here, and let's do input validation now. So this guy is returning a department type. Okay, and then this guy doesn't use a string, he uses a department type. Okay, now when it comes to doing input validation for enumerations, it's actually pretty simple because all I have to check to see if it's not null. So this is trivial. You don't have to have secondary input validation. The problem essentially goes away. The problem now becomes, how do I do primary input validation? I'm getting ready to send something to you, and I got to make sure that what you typed in makes any sense. Okay, so probably down here I need to fix something. I got a red somewhere. Oh, here. Yeah, it's not a string anymore. It is a depth type. Cool. Okay. So I've converted this guy over to using an enumeration, and the reason why is when it comes time to doing input input validation. So I'm asking someone for whether or not, I'm asking for a string, and then I need to convert it over to an enumeration. So I'm going to create a method. A method? Yeah, you know all about methods, right? I'm going to create me a method that basically says, I don't know, convert to type or something like that. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to do a public, and it's going to have to return an employee dot dep type, because that's its return type. And I'm going to say something like convert to department. Okay, and it's going to take a string as an argument, and this would be my department. So I'm taking a string and I'm converting it to an honest-to-God real enumeration. So I can't pass this guy as a string anymore. He has to be converted. It has to be converted to a. So I can't use that, and I can't use that. I need to do this conversion. So that's what this conversion is all about. All right. So I'm just going to copy and paste some stuff, and then we'll talk about it just to kind of speed up the video. So hang on a second. Okay. So basically, here's the code that I wrote for converting a string into a particular department type. So I start off with, I have no idea what the department type is, and I go through a list of them. So each one of the values, and then I check to see if it matches the string that you provided. If I typed in sales, well then it should check it and say, yeah, I found it, and boom, and you're done. If it doesn't find it, then it spits out some sort of an error message and moves on. Now this has no side effects. That's the most important thing for you to remember here. It has no side effects. When I go here and I change and add the engineering, and I change one, and I don't know, marketing, that's all I got to do is go right there. I don't have to make any changes to the part down here for the department, and I don't have to make any changes whatsoever to this part here. See how side effects make a difference? So it's all about side effects. When you're using enumeration, it makes secondary input validation trivial, and it makes primary input validation, well, okay, I'll admit it's a little complicated. Okay, I'll admit that. But it makes it so it has no side effects. I could add a new department all day long and without making any changes whatsoever. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hard code these guys just to keep them from make them shut up. So, and hey, do you notice I don't have to create an instance of the employee class to be able to do that? Right? So what does that mean? That means they're static. Yeah, one of the cool things is that by default, an enumeration inside a class is static by default. I don't have to tell it that it's static. Isn't that pretty cool? So I'm going to go here to employee, and this one was sales, I believe. Cool. Now my guy works. All right. I hope you guys appreciate what enumerations did for me. It is practically the only way to reduce side effects. So I can add a new type here in employee. I can add a new type all day long, and I don't have to go back and make any changes to the code at all. I don't have to make any changes to secondary input validation, and I don't have to make any changes to primary input validation, which is the essence of having no side effects. Okay, now there's one more thing we're going to talk about. It's kind of a wrap up of how to talk to classes and get data from classes. So this is just a little graphic that I put together, and here's how it works. So I have some starting class, whatever that class is, could be main activity, and then some other class, which could be employee. So when it comes time for me to pass data to that class, my choices are kind of limited. It's going to be via parameters of the constructor, if I have a parameterized constructor, or via parameters of setters, or via parameters of methods. Okay, now our methods that we had didn't have any parameters, but that's not the point. And come time to get my data back from this guy, it's going to be the return values of the getters or the return values of the methods. That's the only way you pass data back and forth. Okay, that's how it works. So this is Understanding how you talk to a class is extraordinarily important. Okay, we've reached the end of this chapter, and we'll see you guys again in the next chapter.